Hi, everyone. Here's a piece of advice founders and leaders hear on repeat. You need more visibility. And sometimes that is true. Visibility can create momentum, open doors, help you grow, and most importantly, build trust. Yet in regulated industries, overseen by the SEC, the FTC, the FDA, all these initials, visibility is never neutral. Every panel appearance you do, press interview, social post, or podcast sends a signal, not just to your customers, but to your investors, regulators, strategic partners, and potential acquirers. Here's what I mean and what's at stake. A founder goes on a podcast and says, "Our platform prevents hospital readmissions." To a customer, that might sound compelling. To an investor, it triggers diligence. Show me the proof, show me the data, and show me the limits. To a regulator, it can sound like an outcome claim that needs support. And to a strategic partner, it can raise a different question. Is this team disciplined or are they improvising? So in regulated environments, your words don't just market, they document. What those audiences are listening for isn't enthusiasm. They're listening for credibility, often earned by sharing your unique differences for how their problems are solved. They're asking, does this team understand the environment they're operating in, and do they communicate risk with discipline? That's why the question is not how visible are you? It's what does your visibility say about your readiness, and how is that readiness interpreted? Let's talk about something I call narrative debt. What can go wrong is the interpretation of your narrative. Teams chase visibility before their narrative can withstand scrutiny. Example is a team posts FDA approved, except they're not. In fact, the language is simply inaccurate. Sometimes it's FDA clearance for a specific indication, or they're in the process of it. In a non-regulated industry, you edit the post or the comment and you move on. But in regulated industries, stories and screenshots can live forever. We call it the morgue in earned media. Once a story is written and it's out there, it's hard to correct. Diligence teams find them, regulators notice the patterns, and competitors save them. That's narrative debt. And narrative compounds. What you can defend today is what you say publicly. So each new milestone compounds the progress for your credibility, your growth, and your valuation. One example was working with a healthcare reporter on a very important story on a client that has successful consumer products and announced it was starting a clinical trial of an ingredient in one of their products. We spent a lot of time speaking with one particular healthcare reporter who had nationwide reach, explaining the reasons why a product being investigated is important for women's health, to potentially claim safety and efficacy, of course. But as soon as the story published, we went into a hold the press, or in today's terms, let's immediately correct a few misinterpretations that gave the perception that the consumer product claim was the same for the clinical product being investigated by the FDA, or the consumer cosmetic product is really what we're talking about here, not the clinical product. They're not the same. Thankfully, after several hour back and forth with the reporter, we course corrected the final piece to ensure the CEO did not get into trouble or the company get into trouble with regulators. So what is the visibility filter framework that we're looking through here? Here's a simple filter that I use with our client teams in regulated industries. I call it signal, proof, and timing. Signal, who's listening to this? Customers, yes, but also regulators, investors, partners, acquirers, all of your potential publics. Proof, can you prove it today? Not soon, not once the study finishes, but today. And number 3, timing. Is this milestone moment the time to speak, or is silence strategically smarter while your progress is still being stress tested? Which publics need to hear your story now and which ones can wait? Maybe it's an investment bankers needing a few good earned media pieces to narrow down that right buyer and move toward acquisition, which can take 9 to 12 months. If signal, proof, or timing fails, you don't need more visibility, you need more discipline. What provable looks like. Strategic visibility in regulated industries looks quieter than people expect. It's selective, it's intentional, it's anchored in what is provably true today. I'll give you another good example. A very reputable U.S. health system, cited all the time by reporters and thought leaders, published a story with an in-house reporter interviewing a former physician describing an ingredient. She said the horrific words that no CEO wants to hear about his or her product: fatal if ingested. Well, this story published and lived on for years uncorrected. It omitted the caveat that it was fatal if ingested from an industrial grade usage, not a medical grade usage. For fast forward several years, this same article was linked in a health story about assuming that if a top 3 health system published it, then it must be true. Armed with medical grade facts, the health system publications team was approached and after a very short diligence agreed that it takes a village to keep the healthcare system on its toes. The correction was immediately made, and the link was deleted from our client's story that could have lived on forever as fatal if ingested. Huge, huge step. Publish an evidence-first narrative. What's validated, what's in progress, what's explicitly not to be claimed. It may be one targeted publication or conference that you go to and not 10 random podcasts or social posts. Then an important step is training your spokesperson on precise language with targeted news outlets and reporters. If a financial milestone is your business objective, zero in on the most relevant reporters at publications say merger market or Fortune term sheet or the deal. Know what not to imply and how to answer hard questions without overreaching. And here's the irony. This selective approach can build more trust. It signals readiness to the right audiences that understand that trust, once lost, is far harder to regain than attention ever was. I'll leave you with this. Yes, visibility can help you. Yet in regulated industries, it can also hurt if you show up before being ready. The most credible teams speak when the signal matters, and they protect trust like it's an asset, because it is. I'll ask you to drop the words visibility in the comments, and I'll share a simple one-page checklist with you that you can use before any public moment, a post, a podcast, a panel, or a press interview. And secondly, hit the like button and share this important message about visibility with your colleagues. Thank you.